Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Jason Cavness Experience. Our first guest is Elena Valentine. Elena, are you ready to be great today?
We're going to be good.
Elena is an expert on leveraging video stories in the workplace. With a motto, you cannot be what you cannot see, Elena started filming jobs as a way to get young people excited by the world of work. Since then, her team at Skill Scout has since built a world-class media company. Their films have helped clients like Nike and American Airlines engage candidates and employees alike. She was recently named HR Superhero of the Year by Disrupt HR Chicago. She is also the co-founder of Messia Media Collective, a nonprofit that elevates women filmmakers of color. Elena, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you. Good to brighten up my day with some face-to-face video conversation right now.
Yes, the new normal of this coming up, huh?
Exactly.
So, Elena, how did you get started in media?
So I got started. I've been in the creative arts for a really long time. I'm a sound engineer by trade. But how I initially really got this started is I'm a former design researcher who was basically at the time turning really ugly research video. Behind the glass, everyone's kind of been to focus groups. But basically what I was doing was turning really ugly research video into documentary films that could move C-suite. And so whether that was about helping them see the path of what it was like to be a 32-year-old mother of two who shops at Target. That's a lot of the work that I was doing. It kind of now converged into the work that we're doing at Skill Scout because we were working on a project aimed to connect young people to employment. And these were young people who didn't look good on resumes. Many of them lacked access and exposure to jobs. And the motto, "You cannot be what you cannot see" by Marianne Williamson became ever the more clear. And so when we took a step back, my colleagues and I saw that there was a power in video and there was a power in storytelling in being able to initially just bring jobs to life because job descriptions don't show what a job is like. And so at the essence of what we started to do was to start filming jobs, to get young people to ask questions, to make jobs more tangible, so that they could make more informed decisions about whether or not they would apply. So that's initially how we got in, was using media for just young people to have a more visceral and compelling exposure experience to the world of work.
So, Elena, was it more the creative process or the technical part of making videos that draw you in, or was it a combination of both?
For me, it's never been about the technical process. It certainly has always been about the creative. So I've never been, one to kind of geek out on, the latest equipment, the latest softwares. Because again, what you're finding, and this is through social media, this is through all types of forms, that, people are using this. Everyone can be a filmmaker. And so what you then really have to concentrate on is what's the kind of emotional experience and connection that I want to make with my audience. And to do that, you really have to think more about the creative process in your story.
So, Elena, what is a workplace filmmaker? Can you define that?
Well, a workplace filmmaker, in my eyes, is someone who lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes the stories of the workplace, leveraging film. So our main mission at Skill Scout is to leverage film to increase human connection in the workplace. And so whether that is a job video, whether that's a video about company culture, whether that's about learning or, a leadership giving a powerful message on video, anything and everything that has to do about the ways that we communicate at work and how we might leverage video to increase that kind of connection is what I define as being a workplace filmmaker.
So, Elena, how do you convince people that their story's worth telling? Because a lot of people, they do the same thing over and over again. Oh, I'm not doing anything special. I'm not doing anything, spectacular. How do you convince them, like, no, your story is worth telling. What you're doing is actually spectacular and great, and you need to tell it?
Our companies are made up of people, and our people are unique. And our companies are always going to evolve because the people in our companies evolve and change and move. And so, we've always seen that every story, every company has something very unique and worth telling, because that's going to be what can differentiate themselves from others. So, I think, part of it is realizing that everyone has a story of work and why it's meaningful. And it's up to us as workplace filmmakers to capture those kinds of stories with humility, reverence, and curiosity. That's actually our main creed, that all jobs are meaningful, and that we are here to capture the humanity of that.
Elena, so for most people, getting in front of the camera is not something natural, right? It takes time to learn. It's like a muscle memory. You have to do it over and over again. How do you convince your clients to get natural in front of the camera? Is there any tools or tricks or tips or tricks you can tell us about?
Yeah. So, I think a couple of things. We're dealing with two things here. One is people getting comfortable with owning their story, right? And why they're passionate about their work or what makes their work meaningful. And then it's being on camera, which is certainly, quite an uncomfortable experience for some. So we have to both kind of split that off into two first. One is around, being comfortable with the story that you have, being self-reflective to have that story before going on camera. So the first thing I would say is, not everyone's going to be comfortable with this. I would say one of the biggest fears when I am kind of teaching and presenting on video is one of the biggest hangups that folks have is getting their colleagues to even participate. So this is a real thing. And what I would say to them is, one, identify your cheerleaders first. You know that there are a good 5 to 10 who off the bat, are very comfortable with public speaking, who are very comfortable with their story. And they are the ones to go first, because then you'll have a snowball effect after that. Because then you'll have people saying, wow, well, if Tim can do it, if Sarah can do it, so can I. And then I think there's also this level of the role that the interviewer has, the producer has, in ensuring that that person feels comfortable. That's why I say the kinds of questions that we ask, the kind of environment that me as a producer creates is going to make that person comfortable on camera. So one of them certainly is sharing out the questions, or what we call the guiding questions beforehand, so that people understand that these are the questions they're going to ask. They're laying out the process. And the one thing that we always say is, look, no scripts. This is supposed to be an informal conversation. You are the expert of your experience. So we need to also frame it in a way that celebrates this person, not makes them feel like they have to say something the right way. That this is about, hey, we're here because we want to highlight you because you've just finished a great project, or we want to attract more candidates like you. And I think that gets them really comfortable to know that, they aren't here to perform any differently than just being themselves. And we certainly have a ton of other resources on that I can go on for days, specifically around this topic. But that I would say is probably some of the key things that we want to start on first.
That's great advice, Elena. Elena, so you're a great public speaker. How important is it for people to practice public speaking?
This comes with time. There certainly is a convergence of, public speaking and being on camera. Certainly those that have had more practice, more opportunities to public speak are certainly will tend to be much more comfortable on camera. But I would say inevitably, like, that's the role that the producer has, or if you are, the HR leader who is kind of bringing this together, once again, it has everything to do with how comfortable you are making that person feel just to tell their story. Like, take away public speaking for a second, take away the camera, whether that's your smartphone or a, more of a full production camera. This has to feel like what they are experiencing is a one-on-one conversation where you're genuinely interested in why they do what they do.
I think for me, when I do stuff like this, I think you're always like kind of nervous at the beginning, but you always get a point where you forget there's any camera around, right? And it's this conversation with the other person, and you forget all the cameras and all the lights, and you just act naturally. But it takes a while to get there, I think.
Exactly. And that's why you might start off an interview with some real softball, just fun questions, right? So one of the things that we do to, just test the audio, make sure levels are working is like, hey, describe your favorite breakfast, right? Or, tell me the moment, when you had found, your best friend at work, right? Something that's really easy, that people can just kind of very quickly respond to, get the jitters out, so that by the time we do get around to, what the key themes are, they're already loosened up. And so that comes typically probably within 5 minutes of the conversation.
Elena, what are some common mistakes people make when making videos?
So there's a few. One of them, especially kind of in the videos that we're creating, is people conflating this with how we market and capture our business brand. The big difference here is that, we are not here to create the most interesting man in the world, right? This is about telling it like it is and being probably a bit more authentic and raw, which means that we encourage companies to really lean more into the challenge, lean more into the suck. These roles, our work is not all sunshine and rainbows. There's also some challenges to this. And we need to be really upfront about that and the kind of stories that we share. So that's certainly one common mistake, is that, candidates are going to smell, kind of a fake, video or statement a mile away. They know that there's some downsides to what this role has. And so the more honest we can be about that, the better. The other thing that we see is not giving enough employee voice in the planning process itself. So inevitably, if we are here to create, a video about, a warehouse, logistics worker, which right now is very much high demand right now. It's, making sure that we can involve these employees earlier in the planning process to, kind of understand what is, the work that you're doing, help them, allow them to be part of the creative process a bit more, which can be really hard, I think, for folks planning a video, because they want to plan it very, okay, this is our storyboard, this is exactly what we're going to say. And so we always like to encourage, especially if we're working in the world of HR, that this is as much about a discovery process than anything else. That as you're even going through the process of planning your video, you're going to find out some new insights about this role, about this person, about the mission that people feel that they have as a result of the work that they do. And we just need to embrace that. So in short, it's about expecting surprises, and not thinking that everything can be kind of very rigid, in planned out. I would say the other mistake that people make is thinking that it has to be a glossy, fancy video, full production. There certainly are, advantages and reasons why, some companies might choose for more kind of full production look. But again, we all have smartphones in our pockets, and we're using this every day. And if we are taking pictures of our dogs, cats, and kids, we can also take videos of our workplace. And so that's something to, it's not necessarily a mistake, but certainly a consideration that HR leaders should have, that this is seen as being more authentic. And so the more that we can democratize the tools and put them in the hands of our employees to tell their own stories, we certainly see that as being really powerful in terms of how we might scale and make video more affordable to do.
Elena, so follow up on the everyone has a cell phone. When should you advance from cell phone to like cameras and lighting equipment? When should you make that transition?
So it's different for every company. And sometimes it's going to be based on budget. Sometimes it will be based on, the guidelines that marketing might have, which can be very difficult to achieve with someone who, isn't a, professional filmmaker or a producer. So one of the things that, we see when one company might choose more kind of full production, cameras, lights versus smartphones, maybe this is kind of the foundational video. So think about videos that might be about telling about the mission of your company that just isn't going to change, right? Or the history, the company culture. Some of those are foundational videos that folks typically like to put more investment into, especially because they're going to be sharing externally and sharing much more broadly. And so for some companies, they feel a lot more comfortable with doing that. We have companies that actually do both at the same time. So companies who are both leveraging full production and doing kind of more smartphone, or as we call kind of our production light. And the reason why some folks might go to this is for a couple of things. One is this might be a video that they know just needs to be updatable every couple of months. So think a new company policy or, something that's happening really last minute that we have to address. So think like, a leadership message on, what we're doing to move our employees to all remote work. Obviously, there's a step-by-step process that we're going to take, but that message could be changing every day as, we're getting new updates. So that might be some of the reasons why folks might leverage the smartphone or stuff that's more in the moment, right? So think celebrations, think things that kind of just happen so much more frequently that we want to capture. It becomes a lot more scalable to do on a smartphone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people miss opportunities to like really talk about the employer brand using a smartphone, like just in the office, do a quick story on a conversation you're having. I think a lot of people miss those opportunities, like you did a birthday party for an employee, like do an Instagram story, Snapchat story, or film it, I think a lot of people miss that. So Elena, I want to get your opinion on content. And what I mean is this, I think there's some people out there who's like, don't put a lot of content, limit your content, because you put too much, it waters down your brand. Other people like Gary Vaynerchuk are like, more content, more content, more content. There's never too much content. What's your opinion on that?
It's never going to, this is not a quantity question. This is about a quality question. If what you're doing is putting out thoughtful and quality content that you've thought about the key messaging and who your target audience is, all means, if you have access to do videos every day, amazing. So I think it's framing the question more around quality and is this helping people? So I'll put, Skill Scout as an example, right? We do a lot of video, right? We are a video storytelling company with a video storytelling culture, no doubt. But, we try to be pretty, strategic when we're creating our videos, that every video we're putting out is supposed to be helpful, right? If we're putting out a video around, leaders sharing hard news on video, we've done that ourselves, right? And we give ourselves up as an example to show, here's how you can do it too. And so that's a lot of how we move forward with our content, is how can we be most authentically helpful to our audience? And so for me, when I see, be it influencers or others who are leveraging video in that same way, I'm all for it and I really enjoy their content.
Elena, on your LinkedIn profile, talks a little about why you founded Skill Scout. Can you go and talk about a little bit why you started this company?
Yeah, and as I had mentioned in the past, it was all about working with young people. It's about seeing that there was young people that faced many barriers to employment. And one of them was, lacking exposure to jobs, into the world of work. And job descriptions don't show what a job is like. And so for us, we saw that there was a power in video. Media is the literacy of the 21st century, right? We are going to YouTube to get tours of the White House, learn how to braid our hair. Our young people are going to YouTube to also learn about jobs. And so we started, we were inspired to start Skill Scout for these very reasons of what might we do to bring more excitement to the world of work that we know that exists in a medium that people can really engage in. They can see the work. They can compare and contrast what previous experiences might have been. And so with video, it's never about, this is kind of replacing the job description or the hiring process, but it's certainly helping to expedite it when you're giving candidates an opportunity to self-screen and or self-screen out. And that's a lot of the challenges that we saw with young people who kind of were first kind of coming into jobs, is that many of them were just not being successful because they thought that this job was going to be one thing and it turned out to be another. right? They just weren't armed with the right information in the right way. And so that's initially why we really wanted to start this and to provide a new way for folks, youth and beyond, to kind of really just get an understanding of what jobs are all about, and how we could make all workplace communications more human through the power of video.
And what I really like about what you're doing is a lot of companies, like, they never update their job description, right? It's the same one for 10, 15 years ago, right? And so this gives a chance for the person in the job right now to talk about what's actually going on, and give a more realistic, approach to it. So,
Exactly.
Elena, can you talk about your own entrepreneur journey?
Yeah, and certainly, quite a time to talk about the journey now. I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. That wasn't necessarily the narrative that I had in my head growing up. I started this, my colleague and I started this because we saw an injustice in the world, and we saw that we could use the skills that we had, not necessarily to be the silver bullet, but to be one of several solutions that could work for folks. So I think for me, my why has always been very clear and very present in front of me each and every time we do this. And that matters all the more when we when we experience challenges. I've always believed that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And that I'm here to build a business to last, not to sell. So when we started Skill Scout, this was supposed to be a whole different thing. We were supposed to build a technology platform, build a double-sided marketplace. But then I think as we got down the journey, I think we saw that a big kind of glaring need for the world of HR was content, and that we could really focus on one piece of the solution. And more importantly, I think for myself and Abby, we wanted to build a business that was going to stick around. And so that meant that, probably 2 years into our business, we stopped raising investment to really drive business through our own revenues. And so, of course, then the way that we build our business looks a little different because of that. But that's really important to me. I'm here to build a business to last, not to sell.
Isn't it amazing how many entrepreneurs start building a company and then within 6 months they give up?
I mean, that's why not everyone is an entrepreneur. I mean, it takes a really special kind of crazy and commitment to your idea, to your mission, to follow through, because this envelops you in a way, very much, like raising a child, right? And it can be a very lonely journey. It could mean that you're pushing yourself to the brink of your limits, of your stress, of your anxieties. But I think then there's these moments when you see the impact that your work is making, or even more importantly, when you can see that you are an employer yourself, right? I may be in HR, I may be in the world of HR, but to me, even more, the biggest impact I can make as a leader is not on what Skill Scout could do for other companies. It's what Skill Scout can do for our own workforce. And that's been really important to me, that we are building a company of incredible colleagues, and that I see it as my responsibility, to kind of continue to drive this forward because we have really great people.
Yeah. So this is just my opinion, but I think the last 10 years, of course, it's never easy to be an entrepreneur, but it's been like anyone can be an entrepreneur, right? In the last 10 years, right? There's capital everywhere. Some of the barriers not there. I think what's going on right now is gonna flush out the non-entrepreneurs pretty fast, right?
Yes. Yep. Unfortunately, it is. I mean, look. This isn't an easy road. This isn't an easy road, and you have to be used to failure and to constantly say onward. I'm saying onward so much. I don't think people realize that, there's nothing necessarily very glamorous about this work. I think it's romanticized in a way that doesn't live up to the hype. We get more failures, we get more no's than we get yeses. And it's just having, I think, the willpower to get up every day and still commit yourself to doing this. And, especially as we think about, these past few weeks and months ahead, the true mettle of companies and the true mettle of myself as an entrepreneur and the true mettle of Skill Scout is going to be tested. And it's being tested. And I would say that it's by far from easy right now.
Yes. So talk about you recently named, I think, HR Superhero by Disrupt HR. What is that all about?
Yeah, it's just being involved in the local community of the Disrupt HR chapter here in Chicago. We've been sponsors since their inaugural year, I think probably in 2016. So it was, a blessing to be, I think, highlighted by a community that, I've really committed to and they've really hugged me. So it definitely was an honor, particularly to be given that kind of special place, especially among my HR peers.
So Elena, you talked about this a little bit, but you need to go into more detail what your company actually offers. I believe you had like three pillars, right?
Yeah. So we are, main thing is we're here to leverage film to increase human connection in the workplace. And so what does that mean? Is that we are a company that's primarily working, with HR leaders, with comms leaders to help tell their stories on video is a way to attract, engage, or hire talent. So that could be a job video, that could be company culture, that could be, content for learning and development, any and all communications that happen in the workplace where we could really add film to increase connection, emotion, or information is the work that we do.
And who's your target customers? Like mid-sized companies, small companies, tech companies, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, it's really spanned the gamut. When we first started, we built this business on the shoulders of small to mid-sized manufacturers in the Midwest. So we know our CNC machinists and tool and die makers really well, but have really had the privilege of working with, companies like, Nike, Thermo Fisher, Accenture, Honeywell, many companies large and small in all kinds of different industries. And again, I think it gets to your point. Every company has a unique story to tell because of their people. And so regardless of the industry, regardless of the size, we're seeing that everyone sees value in video, and in however you approach video is really what we do to support companies.
Elena, so you do a lot of work with HR. Can you talk a little about why HR is important?
I mean, our people are the backbone of these companies. And if you as a company see people as your most valuable asset, HR, is in some ways kind of the shepherd of that, which is not just about, sharing, regulations and, every other, compliance things, which is equally important. It's also just making sure that, you have people who spend the majority of their lives at your workplace. And so it's about creating, having a role in fostering a culture where people belong and where people feel celebrated and people are able to really understand and see the meaning of the work that they do every day. That's the role of a really good HR leader. And that's why I know HR professionals come into this industry.
And so back to the entrepreneur journey real fast. I think what a lot of people don't realize or don't forget when they start a company, like suppose you start a company, you build a product, but sooner or longer you're going to have employees, right? And not only are you responsible for your family and the product, you have like 10 employees, you're responsible for those 10 people and their families, right? And I think a lot of people don't get that.
Nope. And I am reminded of that every day.
Elena, I understand you have something for our listeners.
I do. I do have a blog piece that I'd like to share. If you go to skillscout.com/blog, you'll see kind of our latest pieces that specifically, have relevance to right now, particularly around one about sharing hard news on video and providing some tips that HR can work on either with themselves or with their leaders to share updates that have a more human and emotional tone. Because right now our people not only need information, which is absolutely important, we also need connection and we need assurance. And one of the ways that we can do that when we are not in person is through video.
Elena, can you share your social media for both yourself and your company so people can reach out to you?
Absolutely. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. Just Elena Valentine. You can look me up and I welcome to connect with you.
And for our listeners, we'll have her link to her gift and her social media on our show notes. You can find the show notes at www.cavnesshrblog.com. So Elena, we're coming to the end of our talk. Can you give us any advice on any subject you want to talk about?
On any subject I want to talk about. Yeah. One piece of advice that I'm giving myself is, while we are working remotely, while our lives are being uprooted right now, is, finding ways that we can stay creative and grounded. And one of the things that I'm doing every day as someone who, does video, is I'm creating a short video piece every day. I've committed to every time that we are in quarantine to create one short video piece a day. And this isn't necessarily about work. It's just to provide moments of pause for myself and for others if it happens to, strike them. So, I would, kind of at this point tap into what's keeping you creative and what's keeping you grounded as we try to navigate what's happening right now.
Elena, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.